In 1957, an unmarried draftsman walked alone into a crowded supper club in Kansas City on a Saturday night. He knew no one when he came through the door. Within 20 minutes, he was seated at the best table in the room, invited there, not asking. He was not rich, he was not handsome, he was not connected to a single soul in that building. What he had was a set of rules. A handful of plain habits his father had pressed into him before he turned 12, so deep he no longer noticed he was using them. By midnight, he had 2 dinner invitations and a standing offer of work. He used those same rules in every room he ever entered, and he was never once the man standing in the corner. Most of those rules died with the men who lived them. They moved through a room differently. Not with scripts or apps or self-help books, but with habits carved into them by fathers who knew exactly what kind of man they were building. Those habits drew people in, held a table together, and turned a stranger into a friend before the coats came off. We abandoned every one of them the moment we decided being yourself mattered more than being decent. This was not charm, it was a craft. Every entrance had a purpose. Every word was weighed before it left the mouth. Then the 70s arrived, and we called the whole code stiff, phony, old-fashioned. We replaced it with being natural, and loneliness has climbed every year since. Number 17 took less than a single second and made the man who used it the one other people leaned toward all night. Number 12 contradicts almost every piece of social advice handed out today, and it is the one rule that made a man impossible to argue with and impossible to dislike. And number 3, the rule these fathers enforced more fiercely than any other on the list, is now taught to corporate executives in a weekend seminar that runs $4,000 a seat. Their grandfathers taught it for free, at a kitchen table, before a boy was old enough to shave. These 25 rules were not about being smooth, they were about being magnetic. The difference between a man who walked into a room and disappeared, and one who quietly became its center without ever reaching for it. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 vanished gentleman rules that made 1950s men the most magnetic in any room. Number 25. Pause in the doorway before you enter. Magnetism began before the first word, in the half-second most men waste. You stopped at the threshold. One breath. You took in the whole room, who was there, where the warmth was, and where the lonely corner sat. Then you walked in like a man who already belonged. A salesman in Dayton taught his son to never spill through a doorway talking. You arrived first. You spoke second. The pause told every eye that turned that here was a man in no hurry and afraid of no one. For a young man walking into a room of his betters, that one breath was courage made visible. It was not hesitation. It was a man arriving on purpose. Number 24. Walk straight to the person standing alone. Every room had one. The man by the wall, the woman holding a drink she was not drinking, the stranger nobody had claimed. You went to him first, before the popular table, before the easy friends. A foreman in Flint did it at every gathering he ever attended. He said the loneliest man in the room would remember you longer than the whole crowd combined. For a young man at his first dance, standing alone against the wall was a small private agony. The stranger who crossed the floor to him was never forgotten. It cost you the easy conversation. It bought you the most loyal one in the building. The magnetic man was never the one chasing the center. He was the one who made a forgotten corner feel like the center.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a good name and good manners mean something. It's the lost gentleman's code, the old-fashioned manners American gentlemen once lived by. The kind that make you the man everyone respects, welcome in any room you walk into. But these ways are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't spend another year being the man people overlook. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 23, lower your voice when the room got loud. When the noise rose, weak men raised their voices to be heard. The magnetic man dropped his. A radio man in Cincinnati taught his nephew that volume begs and quiet commands. You leaned in slightly. You spoke just under the noise, so the other man had to lean in too. And in that lean, the whole rest of the room fell away. Two people, close, in a private hush inside a crowded floor. Every great host and every great broadcaster of that era knew it in his bones. The loud man fights the room. The quiet man owns the small piece of it that matters. Number 22, the handshake that held the eye. A handshake was not a hello. It was a verdict delivered in 2 seconds. You gripped firm enough to mean it, never hard enough to prove a thing, and you kept your eyes on his the entire time. A banker in Providence taught his son that the man who looks away mid-shake has already told you he cannot be trusted. The hand and the eye work together or not at all. In a single grip you said, "I see you, I am not afraid of you, and I have nothing to hide." People decided in that one motion whether to lean toward a man or away. The hand spoke first, and it never lied. Number 21, learn the name in the first minute. When a man gave you his name, you used it 3 times in the next 2 minutes. Once right away to take it in. Once in the middle, easily, like it was nothing. Once at the parting, on purpose. A hotel clerk in St. Louis lived by it and knew half the city inside a year. By the 3rd use, the name was set in you for good, and the other man felt seen in a way he could not name himself. It was not a parlor trick. It was a refusal to let any human being feel forgettable. Say a man's name and you have already half won him. Number 20. Notice one thing and name it. Magnetic men saw what others walked past. The watch worn thin at the band. The accent from 2 towns over. The carefully shined shoe on a tired man. You found one true thing and you remarked on it plainly with no flattery underneath. A tailor in Newark could meet a stranger and within a minute say the one thing that made the man stand up straighter. People are starving to be noticed and drowning in being ignored. The compliment they never forget is the one about a thing they chose, not a thing they were born with. To be seen exactly is a rarer gift than to be praised. Number 19, serve the other man first. When the pack came out, you struck the match for the man beside you before you touched your own. When the coffee came, you slid his cup over first. A foundry hand in Toledo did it for 30 years. For men he would never meet again. The act was nothing, a penny match, a turned cup, a held door. But in that 1 second, you had put another man ahead of yourself, and he felt it land somewhere words could not reach. For a tired stranger far from home, that struck match was the only kindness he met all day. People forget 100 clever lines. They remember the man who served them before he served himself. Number 18, rise when someone joins the table. You were on your feet the moment another person arrived. A man, a woman, young or old. Not halfway. All the way up. A printer in Omaha taught his son that staying seated, said the newcomer, was not worth the trouble of your knees. You stood, you offered the hand, you waited for them to settle before you sat. It took 2 seconds and a little effort. It told the whole table that a person mattered more than your comfort. For a woman walking alone into a room of seated men, the one who rose made her feel safe. The men who rose were the men others wanted beside them. Standing up was the cheapest way ever invented to lift another person. Number 17, let the other man finish. Here is the one that took less than a second and changed everything. When a man spoke, you let him reach the end of his thought to the last word, and one full beat of silence past it. You did not jump. You did not finish his sentence. You did not wait with your own reply loaded behind your teeth. A school teacher in Spokane called that one held beat, the most generous thing a man could give. In a world of people waiting to talk, the man who truly waited to listen became magnetic without saying a word. Silence, offered on purpose, is the loudest form of respect. Here is what nobody says out loud. 1 in 3 American men over 50 now reports having no close friends at all. Not one. Not because they are unlikable, but because somewhere between 1970 and today, we traded a code of rules for a culture of self-expression. We stopped teaching boys how to walk into a room full of strangers and make each one feel chosen. We told them to just be themselves instead. But being yourself is cold comfort when no one ever taught you how to be anyone in a room. These rules never charged a subscription. They never sent a notification. They just sat in a man's hands and did their quiet work every night, in every room, until there was no one left who remembered they were rules at all. Number 16, dress 1 notch above the room. You did not dress for yourself. You dressed for the people you were about to stand among. A streetcar conductor in Scranton pressed his one good suit every Saturday night, even when money was thin to nothing. He called a clean collar a letter of respect you never had to write. You wore your best to the dance, the dinner, the lodge, not to outshine anyone, but to tell the room you judged the evening worth the effort. It was never about the cloth. It was effort made visible. A poor man in a pressed collar told the room he had not given up on himself. A pressed collar said more than a full wallet ever could. Number 15, give the compliment he couldn't see coming. Anyone could praise the obvious. The magnetic man praised the thing a person was quietly proud of and never expected anyone to notice, the way a man kept his word. The patience he showed a difficult guest. A grocer in Akron made a habit of naming the quiet virtue out loud. He said most men go their whole lives starved for one honest sentence about who they are. You watched. You waited. You named the true thing once, and you let it sit. A compliment about a man's character lands somewhere. A compliment about his necktie never reaches. Praise the choice, not the surface, and you become unforgettable. Number 14, carry yourself like you had somewhere to be and all the time to get there. It was in the spine, the shoulders, the unhurried walk. You did not slump and you did not rush. A rail yard foreman in Cheyenne taught his son that a man's bearing spoke a full sentence before his mouth opened. You stood straight without stiffness. You moved like the floor was yours, but you were happy to share it. People read calm as strength and strength as safety, and they drift toward the man who has both. The bearing was not vanity. It was a quiet promise that you could be leaned on. A man's carriage made the introduction before he did. Number 13, tell the story against yourself. The magnetic man was never the hero of his own tales. When the table told stories, his were the ones where he was the fool, the missed train, the wrong name, the spectacular failure he could laugh at. A salesman in Buffalo disarmed every room he entered this way. He said the man who can laugh at himself hands everyone else permission to relax. In an age when a man was expected to be granite, the one who could crack a smile at his own expense was a rare relief. Bragging built a wall. The self-deprecating story tore one down. People trust the man secure enough to be the joke, and they fear the one who always wins. To make others comfortable, you must be willing to come down off the pedestal first. Number 12. Never try to win the argument. This is the one that cuts against everything we are taught now. When a man held a foolish opinion, you did not crush it. You did not score the point, even when the point was yours. A lawyer's clerk in Hartford could disagree completely and leave a man feeling respected instead of beaten. You asked a question instead of firing a fact. You found the one true thing in what he said and named it before you differed. The man who wins the argument loses the room. The man who lets another keep his dignity owns it. Being right is cheap. Being someone people want to be wrong in front of is priceless. Number 11. The hand on the shoulder. A word was good. A word with a hand on the shoulder was unforgettable. At the right moment, a congratulation, a comfort, a goodbye. You laid a steady hand on a man's shoulder for the length of a sentence. A barber in Memphis did it with every man who left his chair carrying something heavy. The touch said what words could not. You are not alone in this, and I am right here. In a country where men went years without a kind hand, that single contact landed like warmth in a cold house. Fathers were taught it sparingly and used it carefully, which is exactly why it carried such weight. People forget what you said. They never forget that you reached out and touched their trouble. Number 10. Speak to the coat check the same as the host. A man's true measure showed in how he treated the people who could do nothing for him. You gave the doorman, the waiter, the girl taking coats the same good evening, the same eye, the same name you gave the man of the house. A pattern maker in Rockford was known for it across every hall in the city. Kindness aimed upward is just ambition wearing a smile. Kindness aimed downward at someone who can never repay it is the real article, and the whole room sees it. The host noticed the man who was gracious to his staff. So did everyone else worth knowing. In 2019, researchers studying first impressions ran an experiment they expected to settle quickly. They assumed modern professionals trained in networking would outperform older generations at building trust and drawing people in. They found the reverse. Adults raised on the pre-1970 rules, the steady eye, the offered hand, the name spoken back, were rated more magnetic by strangers inside the first 30 seconds than any group tested. The full attention given to one person, the researchers found, beat every modern technique they measured. And weeks later, those same strangers still remembered them at far higher rates. The old rules did not make a man slick, they made him magnetic. We did not outgrow them. We simply forgot that being drawn to someone was always built the same plain way. Number 9. Walk them all the way to the door. You did not say goodbye from your chair. You rose and you walked your guest to the door, onto the step, sometimes all the way to the car, and you stood there until they had gone. A printer in Dubuque did it for every visitor, the banker and the beggar alike. He said the leaving was the part people remembered because it was the part you did not have to do. The welcome could be mere politeness. The long walk to the door was sincerity. People forget how an evening began. They remember exactly how it ended and who stood in the doorway watching them go. Number 8. The pause before you answered. When a man asked you something real, you did not fire back. You let the question land. One breath. Then you answered slowly, like the words had been worth waiting for. A judge's son in Trenton learned it watching his father, who never once answered fast. The pause told a man his question had weight and that you were giving him the whole of your mind, not the first thing off the top of it. To a man used to being half heard, that single-held breath was a small gift of dignity. The quick answer says you were only waiting to talk. The considered pause says you were truly listening. People lean toward the man who thinks before he speaks. Number 7. Raise your glass to someone else. When a glass went up, it was never to yourself. You toasted the host, the quiet man at the end, the friend who had a hard year, the woman who cooked. A welder in Birmingham could find the one person in any room who needed lifting and lift them with a single sentence and a raised glass. The toast cost nothing and made a king of whoever you aimed it at. Every eye turned where you pointed it. Lodge halls and supper clubs across the country ran on toasts like his. The magnetic man used his moment of attention to hand the attention to somebody else, and the room loved him for the giving of it. Number 6. Never check the clock. When you were with a person, you were with them completely. You did not glance at your watch. You did not look over their shoulder for someone better. A doctor in Charleston gave every man in front of him the feeling that he had nowhere else in the world to be. Your full attention, undivided, was the rarest currency in any room then, and it is rarer now. To be looked past is a small wound everyone carries. To be looked at fully heals something. For a man used to being one face in a crowd, those few minutes of complete attention were the most human moment of his week. The man who never checked the clock made every person feel like the only one in the building. Number 5. Remember his wife and children. You did not just know the man. You knew his wife was Helen, and his boy had been sick, and his daughter had started school. A yard foreman in Roanoke asked after a man's family by name every time for 15 years. To a tired man, that question said someone had been carrying his people in mind when they were nowhere in sight. For a man who felt like a number all week, that question made him a father again. 1,000 men ask, "How are you?" The magnetic man asks, "How is your daughter?" and uses her name. People forgive much in a man who remembers what they love. They are drawn, helplessly, to the one who remembered. Number 4, keep your word down to the smallest one. What you said you would do, you did, the large promise and the tiny one alike. You said you would call Tuesday, you called Tuesday. You said you would bring the book came. A cooper in St. Paul built a whole reputation on never dropping a small promise. He said trust is poured 1 teaspoon at a time and spilled all at once. Men learned they could hand him anything because he had never once forgotten the littlest thing. The big word kept impresses for a day. The small word kept again and again makes a man someone you cannot do without. Number 3, make the introduction. This is the rule the fathers enforced above all the rest. You did not just work a room for yourself. You connected the people in it to each other. You took the shy man and the kind woman and put them together with one sentence about what they shared. A lodge secretary in Lawrence spent every evening introducing strangers who became lifelong friends, and they never forgot whose hand had joined them. The man who gathers attention is merely liked. The man who gives people to each other becomes the center of everything. Magnetism is not pulling the room toward you. It is pulling the room together, and standing quietly at the knot of it. Number 2, say you're wrong in 4 words. No excuse, no long story, no soft edges to hide behind. You were wrong, you said so plainly, and you said it right. A stonemason in Hammond apologized to his crew in front of his son with 4 flat words and not 1 word of defense. The boy never forgot how small the words were or how much they bought. People trust the man who can say sorry without a speech, because the speech is where the excuses hide. An apology stretched long is just a defense in disguise. 4 honest words bought back what 1,000 excuses would have spent and made the man bigger, not smaller, for saying them. Number 1, look at people when they speak. That is the whole of it. No method, no counting, no 3-second rule, no clever exception. The very first thing you did when another person spoke was stop everything else and look. Not at their forehead, not past them, at their eyes, for as long as it took for them to know they had been truly seen. A machinist in Gary did it with every soul he ever met, and decades later, strangers from a single evening still spoke his name. This was the rule the fathers enforced more fiercely than all the others. Every rule on this list was only ever this one, wearing different clothes. Look at a person fully, and you become the one thing in the room they cannot turn away from. None of these rules required a charm school, a coach, or a single dollar a man did not have. They required a home where someone lived them in front of a boy too young to know he was being shaped. The men who came up before 1965 understood something we have spent 50 years trying to unlearn. Magnetism was never a gift a lucky few were born holding. It was built from repetition, from discipline, from 10,000 small refusals to make another person feel invisible. The pause in the doorway, the name spoken back, the glass raised to someone else. We called these rules stiff, and we replaced them with being ourselves, and now we stand in crowded rooms that feel full of strangers and cannot say why. The rules were never lost to time. They were set down on purpose by sons who believed they had outgrown them. The magnetic man is still there, just inside the doorway, waiting one quiet beat before he enters. He is not gone. He was only set aside, the way we set aside everything we are told we no longer need. The only thing missing is a man willing to stand where he stood and mean it.